Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and welcome to beautiful Michigan, where we're gonna drive my high school drag racing dream car. This is the 2009 Chevrolet Cobalt SS. It's the later version, so it's the turbo, not the supercharger, you can tell by the wheels. And that's 260 horsepower, 260 pound-feet of torque. And when we look in the rear, we've got the plate, SS Topher. You may be able to hazard a guess who grew up with this thing. Chris Brower of Topher Drive, Substitute Topher. This is his personal car. He's owned it for years. It has 57,000 miles on it. And today, I finally get to drive one. These were all manual 5-speeds. You could not get an automatic Cobalt SS. And that means they are enthusiast cars. But here's the thing. You're looking at this cheap econo car that was built for the masses to be a sedan and a coupe. But these SSs were actually fast. They did not mess around. These were beating Evos. These were beating Lotus Elises. These were beating Subaru Imprezas at car and driver test tracks. This thing can mob at VAR. And it's doing it all with a solid axle rear suspension. This is not like an independent rear suspension, but you do have some pretty gnarly Brembo brakes up here. And here we have our 18-inch wheels. What are we running here for tires? We've got a 225/40. So a little bit of sidewall, but in period, definitely a low profile tire. So Chris, if you can like pop the hood, show me your early 2000s drag car, because that's exactly what this is. Yeah.
It's funny you bring that up because in Need for Speed Pro Street, the starter drag car was a Cobalt SS. So
for real?
I was playing this car on my PlayStation 2, and that's what made me want this so much as a little adolescent boy.
Oh yes, you got to have the big old K&N cone air filter for sure.
This is the only aftermarket piece on the car. Everything else is stock.
It's direct injection. It's an Ecotec, and this has blow-off noise like Fast and the Furious 4G63 Eclipses. It is just the most rowdy little engine. These seem to be reliable cars.
Yeah, it's had essentially no issues in my 12 years of ownership. I mean, granted, I haven't driven it as much as like a normal person would daily drive something, because I was weird as a 16-year-old and I garaged this car during winter.
Oh, sweet boy, you're still weird.
I'm glad. Well, I do still garage it for winter, yeah. But with that, though, it stayed nice, and there aren't many of these that are still in this condition that aren't either rusted in half, modified to 600 horsepower with, you know, all sorts of mods and everything. So I'm kind of proud of myself that, you know, as a teenager, I didn't ruin the car, but yeah.
Let's jump in and take this little front-wheel drive sleeper out for a romp, because, man, it's just the coolest. Now, the interior, you can tell they spent all their money on making these things just to be like fast little monsters, because I think they only cost around 25 grand when they were new.
Yeah, I have them in Roni.
So yeah, let's see what that MSRP is. But interior wise, like, it's all kind of cheap Chevy plastic stuff from the time. So there we go. 30 mile per gallon highway, 24,250. Now there are some options that this car does have and options this doesn't have. This one does have the optional moonroof. It costs $495, but unfortunately, so did the limited slip differential, and this does not have the LSD. So whoever bought this new chose a moonroof over an LSD. So we've got open front diff, and we're probably going to experience a little bit of wheel spin. Like I said, all of these are 5-speed manuals. You cannot get an automatic Cobalt SS, and they've got these trick seats, man. These seats are tight. I gotta tell you, when we're driving, these things really grab my rib cage. If you're a large dude, or even like a smaller, medium-sized dude, like, you're gonna be sitting on top of these side bolsters. Plenty of room in the back, but they give you a little bit of extra excitement with the red. But otherwise, pretty standard Chevy interior for the time, so I'm genuinely quite impressed with how nice this one still is. These doors are large. This is a large door. If you're parking in tight spaces, you're gonna have to learn how to like slither out of it, because you can see how far forward that seat is. You're gonna have to kind of go behind the car to get out. To start our Cobalt first, we're gonna, just for the sake of Chevrolet purity, we're gonna remove our keychain from our key, because if you remember the recall where the ignitions were just cutting out because of the weight, I'm pretty sure this has been fixed. Yeah, so we don't have to do that, but just, you know, a little trip down memory lane. If we were driving this in period, you might want to do that. Jumps to life. We've got our sort of teal, blue, green, little blocky LCD display that reminds me so much of a C5 Corvette. And over here, our traction control button, very unceremoniously, just kind of like tacked on over here. And first press is traction off, second press is competitive mode. So whenever you're stopped, it goes into launch control, which means, now don't worry, this car is warm, I'm not just revving it, but let me put my seatbelt on so it's not barking at me. Safety first, right? But now that it's in launch control mode, I can like gas it, and it'll hold it at 5,000 RPM. So that way you can just be a rowdy jerk when you get off the line. What it also has is no lift shift, which I'm like a little nervous to try on this, but we may give it a shot. On the A-pillar, this is stock, man. That is not an aftermarket A-pillar boost gauge. So this is really designed for those Fast and Furious, like 2000s fanboys who just wanted to have all of the treats. So Chevy was listening to their audience, which I think is really cool. Electric power assisted steering, but still loads up pretty good. But yeah, let's get out on some roads and see how she handles. This clutch is really grabby. It feels like a stage 2 clutch in something a lot more special than it has any more business being. And we're gonna get over here and look, we're gonna have to drag race this Ford Explorer. Hear that turbo blow off. It's pretty raunchy. This car only weighs 2,900 pounds and change, so it's light and you feel it in the handling. I went for the no lift and I didn't feel comfortable doing it, so I gave up on it. But man, this thing pulls.
It does pull, yeah. I mean, as a high schooler driving this car, I thought it was the fastest thing in the world. So,
I mean, it's not bad. Like, yeah. And it handles really well. This is the thing. New cars, no matter what they do, suspension, tire, whatever, you can add grip and everything, but there's something about reducing weight that is just, you cannot replicate the sensation of a lighter car. And the fact that this has just 2,900 pounds to lug around makes it really nimble and playful. And I don't feel like I'm winding up this elastic band that's gonna snap on me. Like, I can kind of play with it.
Yeah, you do kind of get that old school feel too with the solid rear axle and just simply the lack of weight.
Yeah.
Just being able to chuck this thing around is so funny. I want to get off of it.
Sure. And the other thing is, like, even though this is kind of like, it still has like more of an old school turbo vibe to it. It seems to always have torque. Like, it has torque in places that I'm kind of shocked that it's building it.
Yeah, a lot of low down torque. Hit this at a decent pace too.
Oh yeah, this is a great on-ramp. Get into these brakes a little bit. Oh yeah, see, that's the thing. That's where the weight starts to really come into play. And it just doesn't feel that abusive to like beat on a little bit, because if you've got a 3,500 pound car and you're blasting around, am I going left here?
Yep.
Okay. If you blast around in a heavier car, you're like destroying tires. I feel like you go through tires infrequently in this because of its weight. The brakes. Okay. Brower put track pads on it, so that's just because they're pretty aggressive pads.
Yeah.
Get some AC going. I could hear the engine just go.
Yeah. It doesn't. I know. I feel like you lose like 50 horsepower with AC in this car. So.
Pretty much better than I ever imagined. The shifter feel is pretty crisp. The shifter location may be in the wrong spot. It feels like it's way, way far back. If I was tall and I could sit further away from the wheel, then I think I'd be in better shape with it. So I'll go left, right here. Okay. But the actual gear engagement is really nice. a little track monster, dude.
Yeah.
I'm in love. Like, I think this is fun.
Yeah, it's a great car.
This would have competed really directly with like SVT Focus, and SVT Focus was probably down, I don't know, 60 or 70 horsepower,
100 horsepower.
Maybe 100 horsepower, and definitely down on torque, because that was a naturally aspirated thing. Wow. The sounds this makes.
The sad thing about it too is this was it. There was no hot Chevy Cruze after this. 2010 was the last model year for the Cobalt SS.
It had just enough normalcy to lie to your rich parents to get them to buy you this.
Yeah.
Because you were either going to buy this or like a Saturn Ion Redline, and to be able to get your parents to buy this, you said, well, it's just a Cobalt. It just has like a little wing. It just has a little wing. And they don't know that it's like this special thing that you've been reading about in Car and Driver that's wasting its competition at VIR. They just think like, oh, it's a safe, normal car. They're looking on the lot and they're looking at the normal ones and they're like, well, that one's only like $21,000. Why don't you get that one? It's nice. It's blue. You like blue. And you say, no, I really want the one with the wing, and these seats are so comfortable. And honestly, they'll be safer, Mom, because, you know, when you put it into a corner, I won't slide around, and it just looks cool. I love the wheels, too. And they're like, all right, fine. And if they don't know, because they didn't, you know, SS to the boomer parents would have meant V8, and you sure as hell weren't buying your kid the V8, so you're getting them a 4-cylinder with a turbo. Oh, whatever, who cares?
Yes.
They don't know. This is like the most European style of American car.
I feel like maybe you fantasized in high school about having your parents buy you a Cobalt SS.
I think I did. So I had like a wealthier friend who had a Saturn Ion Redline while I was driving a 1994 Mark III Golf with like 200,000 miles on it. So my Golf I dynoed it. It had 96 horsepower. And that Ion Redline felt like a Z06 to me. NVH is reasonable for, you know, an Econo car. You get some wind noise and stuff, but like I could spend hours in this.
Yeah. Longest road trip I've ever taken it on was Lexington, Kentucky, which is like 6 hours from here. It did fine. It's usually good for like 34 mpg.
I know there's a stop sign coming up, but these brakes are really good.
Yeah.
Right or left?
Right. 4-piston Brembos, baby.
Dude, they are like, it's confidence inspiring, and you know, that's, they don't have to do a whole lot of work. You don't feel like you're abusing the brakes.
It's such a happy noise. Go left for that car as well.
Got it. Dude, I'm just like thrilled about this. It's hard to heel toe it because there's a big old distance, so I would have to be deep in the brakes for me to be actually achieving an appropriate heel toe downshift. Oh, it still has stability control.
It does.
Because it just,
control, yeah.
Wow.
Go left.
Pretty aggressive, but like functional for 2009.
Yeah. I'm so sorry about your audio.
No,
Brakes.
They deserve it. Yeah, the suspension's like nice and firm. It allows me to be playful in a corner, but it's not giving me like egregious body roll. But it's not so stiff that it's like chattering my teeth out. Like this is an era of Chevrolet where their chassis engineers were starting to get like really good, and I don't know if anyone knew it. Like MagRide was out, so people knew about that, but we'll do a little loop in here, yeah. MagRide was out, but I don't think people really appreciated the talent that these engineers had to imbue in these other vehicles that maybe just seemed like, oh, that's your teenager car, but this would just mob an autocross.
This is what I learned. Well, I learned manual in this car, but I also learned autocross in this car. As a 16-year-old, I was out doing SCCA events with this car.
I mean,
so
it's perfect.
Yeah.
Take a right.
Yep.
Very little torque steer, but it doesn't have the LSD, so that's possibly why, and it actually might be more drivable with the open diff, but frankly, it's still hooking up really well with the open diff. I have not once felt like this was not doing it justice. Maybe the LSD was a little overkill. Maybe in some lower speed stuff it's helpful, but like I've never felt it pulling out of those on-ramps. It doesn't have enough torque to like waste the front end, so it's balanced, like it's still appropriate. And it's geared well. Like, I think even on the highway, 5th gear, I'm not longing for a 6. It's a very eager turbo. Like, if you give it a little throttle, it's like getting into boost.
Oh, yeah.
And it wants to go. You gotta like kind of restrain your foot. It's very sucky. It has like such a ridiculous induction sound. That's bananas. But like driving it normally, that's the thing. You can cane it and it's happy, but you can kind of just dawdle around.
Absolutely.
I mean, you don't want to be like lugging this engine, but you can add a little bit of boost to it, and it just pulls right along.
All right, we'll go right here. This one is paved for sure.
We keep finding dirt roads that we're not supposed to go down.
This is a good road too.
Oh.
Yeah, it'll boost up to like 17 PSI. It's a stock tune on this car, so.
I'm sure there's some raunchy tunes out there that'll just go kaboom.
Yeah.
Don't even need to brake, but I just want to sell the nose a little bit. Sounds like a little dog barking up front. Oh, dude, I need it. This is so refreshing. I think engineers need to go back and drive some old cars. Even my Civic Type R, I don't think it has the same sort of playful nature that this has. And the limits of those cars are much higher, but this goes to show that just because you build faster, higher limit vehicles doesn't mean that they necessarily deliver on the fun to drive factor. And as much as I love my Civic Type R, I think I'm having a little more fun in this Cobalt SS. I know that's like a weird thing to say, but I feel like I can dance with a little more. I feel like in the Civic Type R, when you commit to a corner, when you commit to going fast in it, you're winding up that elastic band. It's got a sticky 265 section tire, and when that tail steps out, it's stepping out a little more aggressive. You've got to be on your game, which is wonderful and fantastic on a racetrack. But I think in just a day-to-day driving application, I'm driving home from work, I'm driving home from school, I want to just kind of enjoy this thing, but I don't want to feel like I have to go so crazy to touch the limit of the car. This makes me happy. This does that job. This allows me to approach limits, rotate it a little bit. I start to feel it understeer. You just pull off the throttle, it just tilts itself in, and you get back on. And it's not so fast that by the time you do get on the highway, you're doing 150. Everything's so crazy now. And we don't need speed. We need feel. We need playfulness. And it's a hard thing to do. This car had to die essentially because this engine no longer met emissions. And I think you can still do a lot with modern engines that are fun and playful, but we're not very often getting lightweight things that are in the realm of 2,900 pounds. So there's nothing like this, because my Celica GTS was a 2000 model year. It revved to 8250. It did not have this torque. It still had 180 horsepower, but it weighed 2,500 pounds. So the chassis was fun to play with, but this would have been a hot rod next to it.
Talking about your Civic Type R too.
Yeah, I know. This road's junky, so I had to bail on the speed.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Michigan's hit or miss with these. So I think that's going to do it for the Cobalt SS. I feel like I'm living out my 17-year-old fantasy here. I wasn't dating. I just wanted torque in my Econobox. I just wanted my parents to be rich to buy me a toy. Yeah. And I was very fortunate to have any toy. I was very fortunate to have my Golf. So I am not ungrateful. And they paid for my gas.
That's nice.
It was $2 a gallon. Those were cool days. And that was expensive. They were like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah, no. I had to put my own gas in this car, so.
Good for you.
I was gingerly driving around trying to get my 28 MPG City, you know.
Well, thanks for letting me drive your old baby. I mean, I know this one like means a lot to you, so handing the keys to this one is probably like harder than handing the keys to like any other vehicle you own. So I genuinely appreciate it. Well, thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Go check out Topher Drives. Topher Drives. This is Substitute Topher. If you're confused about who Substitute Topher is, he sometimes makes videos for Wine and Grove Magazine and The Topher. He is not The Topher. That's Chris Amos. This is Chris Brower. So Topher Drives is this Topher. The Topher is other Topher. So check out Topher Drives. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.